Okay, so we have our poses leading into our walk cycle, and then again, frames 15 through 47 is the cycle itself. So I'm going to sort of limit our timeline right now from 15 to 47, just so we can look at just those poses. So one of the things you're going to notice is there's little bitty hitches or surges in it that maybe cause it to look incorrect. Maybe there's some wobbly rotations or things like that. So I want to look at this in the graph editor and see if we can figure out why. So I'll hit stop, and I'll go ahead and open up the graph editor by going into this view. Now you can open it up however is easiest for you to work with it, but I like how this looks here. Now if I grab any of these controls, particularly this one, our hip control, and I frame this up by clicking this button, it will frame up the region of our cycle, the 15 through 47. And I can start selecting these curves, and what I should be seeing is a pattern. I should be able to see like this flowing in a similar pattern. So you'll see that my translate X is my character's side to side movement, and that would make sense. As the character moves from one side to the other, that curve goes down. As the character goes to this next step, they have to shift their weight back over to the other side, right? And so one of the ways we can kind of work on a walk cycle to clean it up is to make sure that this pattern is not got anything weird or anything that would mess up that flow. So something simple is like maybe raising that up just a little bit and making this a little bit more like a bell curve, making this just a little bit more like a bell curve. And just that little bitty tweak will slowly start to add up and make this feel a little more consistent. So I'm just going to comb through my curves, and you'll see again we're getting a pattern. It dips down, kind of comes up to this peak, down. One of the things you may notice is that these two ups and downs are not kind of level with the other two, so maybe I could just pull that down just a little bit, right? The translate Z is where I'm seeing a little bit of an issue. So you can see it's like this progression forward, and then suddenly there's this weird surge right here that is confusing. And this is for my character's forward and backward motion. And so we get a little bit of a surge forward from here to here. And I think that may just be a little too much. I think we just need something like that, and then kind of ease into the next little bit here. I think you can have a little bit of a surge forward, but I think it's looking a little too intense. So let's see what we have if we do something like that. So let's look at our rotations now. Our rotation X is the forward and backward rotation. And this is where you can see that the pattern isn't working so well. Our character rotates forward here, and then starts to rotate back here, but then it flattens out, like it sort of stops rotating back, and then suddenly rotates forward again, and that feels like a hitch. Now, what is probably a little more appropriate is how it is on the second one, that like here the character's head is rotated back a touch more, right? And then we would get something like this. But making that drastic of a change just to make sure we're adhering to this curve may cause other problems in the animation. So let's see if that helped. So we're getting some stuff happening there. But one of the things we could do is just make the entire thing a little more consistent. Maybe it's something like this. Like really there's no single answer. We just have to mess with this curve and figure out what's happening in this pattern that might be making our animation a little less smooth. Now, rotate Y is my character's twisting from side to side, and I'm definitely seeing a problem in this curve, right? This is how the character rotates, and you'll see that if I twist up and down, if I go up, my character sort of looks to his left. If I go down, he sort of looks to his right. And what we have now is like this quick look to the right, and then a look back to the left, and then a big look to the right. And I feel like maybe that big look to the right is just a little too big. So I have to be careful not to take it too far to where I mess up my knees, but that looks a little bit better. And I may be able to just sort of transition this a little more smoothly, like something like this, right? So the character slowly looks to the right and then slowly. He does this quick turn there, and that's part of our other problem, is that quick turn is a little too sudden. Maybe we could just have the character sort of a little bit more gradually look to the left, right? So just fixing this. It's not that you always have to take out any of the interesting little bobbles in it. It's that you want to make sure that those bobbles aren't sort of messing up the flow of your animation. So just by doing that, now it's a little smoother in the way he walks. So you can see that here, that's feeling a little better. The last curve I'll look at is rotate Z. Now rotate Z is sort of the lean from side to side. And although this is feeling good already, I think I can make this look even a little bit better here. So if I go up, the character leans in that way. And I like that idea of him sort of staying leaning that way. So I can do something like this and start making this pattern out of it, right? And so let's see if that helped any. Yeah, so that's feeling much better. Now, what happens from our beginning to our end, or from our beginning to that first step, also may need a little bit of work, right? So maybe I would want to just go ahead and extend my timeline to include that and look through this stuff as well. And so you'll see that, like, as the character sort of starts to move to that side, it's sort of a straight line. Maybe I could ease out a little bit, and that way it kind of has a little bit more personality to the way it moves, right? Translate X, it kind of dips down here. So there's a lot of little curve editing stuff that we need to do in this section to just make sure that it looks correct. And I'm all right with that, actually. This, maybe hold back just a little longer. My rotates are interesting because there's not really any happening. And so I can sort of add just a little bit to make it feel like it's a little looser there, and maybe even here. Maybe even have it to start to overshoot a little bit. Right. Now, I want to do this when I'm animating on a character. I want to do this on every control. I want to make sure every control is doing what I want it to do. And in this case, the foot here, I noticed it wasn't. If we watch this as it pushes off, right, it's going to push right there. It rolls up on the toe, and then as soon as it gets to that point there, it starts to move forward, right? And so I want to look at the ball toe information here and maybe see if I can maybe smooth that out, or maybe even shift it a frame and make it happen like one frame earlier or something, right? So we get like that. But part of my problem, maybe not, that doesn't make sense, or didn't look right. Part of my problem, though, I think, is that this happens so suddenly, and so maybe we want this to hold back a little longer, something like this. There we go. And so now that's a little smoother. And I think the way that we ease up on our ball and toe right here, we could almost have another keyframe right there. So I can select this and go to Keys, Insert Key Tool, and then middle click, and it inserts that key. Set that to auto, and then I can kind of adjust that to make it sort of ease in a little bit right to there, and then push off. So that's feeling better. I also notice a couple of other little things, but I want to make sure that no matter what I do, I don't mess up frame 15 or frame 47, because that's the beginning and the end of my animation. So in this section of sort of polishing this up, I can shift some of these other keys, but I don't really want to shift those, right? So for example, like the way my foot comes down on the ground right here, you'll notice it kind of slides just a little bit. And I think part of that is it's taking it's taking 4 frames for that to happen. I want that to happen pretty quickly. I want to make it happen in like 2 frames. So just on this foot, I make that sort of slap down a little faster, right? If I watch it now. And I'll do that with the other step too, with the other foot. So when it slaps down right here from this frame to this frame, I want that to happen over about 2 frames. There we go. Now the other little thing I want to watch out for is how the toe sort of blows through the floor there. So some of this may be adding a couple extra keyframes. So right here, the toe blows through the floor. And so what I could probably do is just go in here and add just another keyframe to that toe to kind of hold it back to there. And then maybe as it kicks off there, that's not too bad. And then the same with this foot. It's kind of blowing through the floor there. Maybe get to right here. Add another one to that toe. And then maybe even raise that up just a touch on this one. And we get... That's feeling much better. All right. So I've got my lead in and my first two steps feeling a little bit better. Now, I do notice just a little bit of tweaking I could still do, particularly just, this is super nitpicky, but the way the foot comes down here over those two frames, you'll notice it does feel like it kind of slides back there, right? And so one of the things I could do is I could just manually go in there and every frame make sure that that sort of hits the same. There we go. So now that slides forward a little better. Let's see if I need to do it with this one as well. There we go. So that's better. Now the things that I just worked on may not be the things that you have to work on. But it's still like the whole point of this phase. This is the splining and the polish phase. This is to make sure all those little things that are messing up in the way Maya transitions from pose to pose, that you're fixing those things and making it happen more smoothly. Now, the assignment calls for 6 steps, and so far we've only done 2. So in the next video, I'll show you a little trick on how to make that easier.